As you say, normally we do, we're probably better known for activist shorts, and I love doing activist shorts. They're, they're full of adrenaline, they're challenging. That's not all we do. Like very often, we do long as well. Sometimes it's a very deep opportunistic value plays, and sometimes is long that have an activist angle. And I think in a period like this, it's important. There are a lot of opportunities here and there. Some of them have been overlooked due to COVID, due to other reason, and it is for one of those opportunities that I would like to talk to you today. So disclaimer. Okay, this is just our track record as an activist. You see, these are all short sales. We do have another long activist track record, which was Allergan, which was presented last year. But this is what we're talking about today, is a company called Sun Corporation, and the title of the presentation is A Hidden Gem in the Rising Sun. It will be clear why in a moment. The ticker is 6736, and the stock trades on the Japanese stock exchange called JASDAQ. So what is this about? Opportunity in a nutshell is basically an overlooked Israeli top cybersecurity business which trades in Japan together with an old Japanese conglomerate. It has sales and earnings compounding at 21% and 40% respectively. It has a very strong activist investor base, which recently replaced both the board and the executives, which were very conservative before, and replaced it with a very investor-friendly team. We believe this company at some point will probably be double listed or spin off in a NASDAQ IPO. And more importantly, the business is trading only 1.4 times enterprise value to sales in an industry which in the US usually trades at a median of 5 or even more. So basically it's a stock profoundly undervalued, and there is a very clear upcoming catalyst on the way. So what's the company in a nutshell? It has a market cap of 470 million now. It used to be much cheaper just a few months ago, but it rebounded a bit after COVID. Cybersecurity, it has total sales of $248 million, and EV to sales, as we saw, 1.4 times. This is the stock chart. As you see, like it corrected significantly during the COVID crisis, but it rebounded very quickly afterwards. This isn't very updated right now. It's actually above 2000. A very brief history. Company was founded in 1971, used to do electronics, that shifted to personal computers, entered the gaming industry in the 90s and 2000, and acquired a few high-tech companies, including an Israeli company called Cellbrite. It also expanded into the entertainment business, especially with the type of business we'll see in a moment. Recently, in the last few years, it basically entered a bit of a crisis. The entertainment business is deteriorating, growth has stalled, and margin have been dropping. It sold last year 25% stake of this company called Cellbrite, which is included in Sun Corporation, a minority stake to an Israeli VC fund. And in early 2020, as we will see later, and we mentioned before also, the board was replaced by an investor-friendly one. So two main businesses right now. 75% of revenue approximately originate from Cellbrite, the Israeli cybersecurity firm. Very interesting business that does essentially security and cybersecurity for mobile devices as a core, and a lot of other sub-businesses. And then 25% of the sales originate from pachinko. Now, pachinko, for those of you which have been in Japan, they will probably be able to recall those big rooms like the one you see in the photograph. And essentially, it's a hybrid between a video game and a kind of gambling, kind of like slot machine, and takes advantage of some legal loophole which allows them to market in Japan. As many other businesses, this business is probably in terminal decline because it's moving online. So people are just finding it easier, more convenient to gamble online rather than to go to this pachinko. So the business is shrinking every year, and we don't think it's going to reverse. But it's now down to less than 25% of sales. This is the same, you see representation and graph. And this is the profit. You see that all of the business lines lose profit. The biggest one losing profit is the pachinko one, which again is in the process of essentially disappearing. And Sellbrite is the only one that's making money. And so most of the business right now is Sellbrite. This is focused on Sellbrite, so the cybersecurity company, 21% CAGR, very fast and predictable growth. We'll see why later. The profitability is still a little jumpy because the company is small, but there is a very clear trend of very fast earnings growth, around 40% group CAGR. This is because the company is still relatively small, so it has a very long, basically track of growth in front of it and a lot of operating leverage as well. This is about the pachinko business, which is disappearing. So revenue going down, EBIT going down. You see that it's negative right now. Why do we like Sellbrite? So again, what did it do? It's a business which it's in a very sexy segment, very high growth rates, very high barriers to entry. And they do cybersecurity for mobile devices. What exactly? Number one is data extraction. We'll see later what it means. Data transfer and analysis of devices. Their clients tend to be forensics, so law enforcement, intelligence agencies, and the military, and some other minor civilian applications. Notable features are, number one, again, extraction, which basically means that they manage to extract data from mobile phones, which are typically confiscated from suspects, essentially, to get information that either may lead to convict them or to find accomplices of troublemakers. Capability of recovering hidden and even deleted data, deciphering of encrypted information, and accessing password-protected data. All of this done with data integrity from a forensic perspective. What does it mean? It basically means that if somebody's caught committing a crime, his mobile phone is confiscated by the police, and the police will try to extract information. Now, it is very important that the process of extraction, which in itself is very difficult and complicated and requires a lot of steps, is done in a way that preserves the chain of evidence, so that the defense lawyer of the suspect will not be able to say in court that whatever compromising information was found on his phone wasn't implanted, for example, by the police. So the systems that Sellbrite sells allow to do all of this in a very smooth way, which can then be used in court, and it is used in court on a routine basis as we speak. Now, the company made the news on several occasions, even though probably most people won't recall the name. You probably do recall, unfortunately, the San Bernardino terror attacks, which occurred in California in 2015. In that case, 2 terrorists killed over 30 people in California, were themselves killed by the police, and eventually their mobile phones were confiscated. The FBI tried to penetrate one of their mobile phones in order probably to understand if there is a network of terrorists still active, and they couldn't get through the password protection from Apple. So what they did, and this did hit the news several days in a row, is they went to Tim Cook and essentially tried to force Apple to build some kind of a backdoor or some kind of a software way to penetrate their own phones. Tim Cook refused and said it was ready to go to jail, but they wouldn't comply. After about a week, there was a bit of a standoff, and eventually the FBI said, okay, it doesn't matter, we solved the problem. So they solved the problem, as you can see in this article, by essentially hiring Sellbrite. They hired Sellbrite and they had an agreement with them. Sellbrite very easily managed to crack the password protection and get all the information that the FBI needed. See here, this other article that came out at the time. When the FBI has a phone it can't crack, it calls these Israeli hackers, and they mean Sellbrite. Even here, Israeli tech company says it can unlock all iPhones ever made and some Androids. And even ICE, which is basically the immigration police, they have a $30 million contract with this company, which essentially allows them to, once they get their hands on the mobile phones of illegal immigrants, they can probably, again, unlock them, extract information, and check that whoever wants to enter the United States doesn't have any ties, probably with organized crime or with terror networks. Some other application, the NYPD, for example, has been using it. And there is even some kind of a project of giving one device to each cop in a mobile unit. Essentially, you know, if somebody's caught doing a traffic violation or committing a crime, the police theoretically could take the phone and see how fast the guy has been doing and if there is anything else hiding. And obviously, this would create some legal problems. It would be interesting in this kind of environment to go through them. So why do we feel very bullish for the future of this company? Number one, the market grows very fast, itself at 48% CAGR, and is forecasted to reach $42 billion by 2024. The company has very little competition right now. The market itself is still very young and penetration is very low. So around the world, only very few police forces already use this product, even though it's expanding very quickly. And there are very strong barriers to entry. Number one, the technology is proprietary, so it's all patent protected. A lot of it is secret. The company itself has access to byproducts of Israeli technology. So as it happened with a lot of Israeli companies, security technology is developed by either the military and or intelligence agencies, and eventually it gets passed to the civilian market into companies like Cellbrite, for example. And this is a strong competitive advantage because there is an ongoing stream of technology that gets transferred from these very high productive places. The current revenue flows comes from lucrative contracts with government agencies, obviously police forces or intelligence agencies. Those contracts have to be very sticky, and they don't suffer from business cycles or recessions or COVID, for example. As any business which has very high fixed costs, for example, from R&D, it has economies, so you can expect margins to keep expanding as the company grows. And finally, it's a company that within its area of operation has very strong brand power. So the Apple story is very well known, and people which understand the environment, that the name is definitely already a brand, even though to the average Joe on the street it doesn't mean anything. Recently, some changes have been occurring, some very important changes. In June 2019, an Israeli venture capital firms acquired 25% stake of Cellbrite from Sun Corporation. And they acquired them at an implied valuation of $440 million. So they paid about $110 million for 25%. The capital would be used to accelerate growth and to do acquisitions. Sun Corporation still retains 72% of Cellbrite. Now, the bad news, what I didn't like about this acquisition is that, in my opinion, Sun Corporation sold for way too little. In my opinion, the company itself is worth a lot more than $440 million. But keep in mind that they paid that valuation, and Sun Corporation itself has a whole market cap, including a lot of cash on their balance sheet, for slightly the same number. That's number one. Here you can see what's happening for comparables. Now, the problem with Sun Corporation is that A, it's a Japanese company, and B, it is not very well known in the United States. And finally, it is mixed with the pachinko entertainment business, which, as we saw, is declining and is definitely not as sexy. That keeps valuation very low at around 1x EV to sales. You see that the median multiple for the competitors of Cellbrite, or companies that do a similar technology, is actually over 4x EV to sales, and reaches peak of over 20x. So the idea is, if this company were brought to the attention of the American investor public, marketed in the right way, and maybe stripped clean of those legacy businesses, which are now a very small part of the company and are losing money or aren't adding anything interesting, then it could trade for a lot more. Let's look at the numbers a little bit. So we think the Cellbrite is worth somewhere between 600 million and 2.1 billion US. And this is very easy. We just do an extraction and sales multiple comparison. So the bear case is we use it with about a 3x sales valuation, which is what essentially the VC fund bought. The base case is a 5x sales valuation, so there is a mistake here. So the base case is $890 million. The bull case, if we apply a sales to a price multiple of 10x, is almost $2 billion. Now, as we say, Cellbrite is not a standalone company yet. It's actually still part of Sun Corporation. The market cap right now of Sun Corporation is $470 million. But of that number, almost $260 million is cash. So if you take that into account, and the 72% valuation of Cellbrite stake, and if you assign even zero value to the rest of the business, which even though they lose money, they do have sales and do have assets. So this is how you calculate a possible valuation for the entire company, not only Cellbrite. So 166 million net cash, 72% Cellbrite stake, depending on the sales multiple that you calculate, We give a value of 0 to the rest of the business. Total value ranges between 700 million and 1.5 billion US for the whole company. Right now, market cap is 470. So you have an upside that goes somewhere between 48% and 200% right now. But if you take into account the fact that the company keeps compounding at 20% per year, from now to whenever any catalyst will take place, it's possible that the upside is even more. This is the activist angle. Now, we heard about this company last year. We came across it. We thought it was incredibly undervalued. It was a little bit cheaper than it is right now, though it is still undervalued. And a little while later, basically, the issue was that the former management was not very active, and essentially they were not doing very much. They were not reacting fast enough to the deterioration of the pachinko business, for example. And we thought that because of that, the valuation was extremely low. There could have been a lot of activist angle taken, for example, a large buyback or a dividend, since the stock is usually cash flow positive, divesting non-core businesses, for example, the pachinko, or looking for a strategic buyer, or even more interestingly, given the high valuation that occur in the US market, a NASDAQ listing would have been a good idea. So you see here, Oasis Management, which is a Hong Kong-based fund, a very good and a strong fund led by my friend Seth Fisher, actually took the initiative, and together with other current investors, they promoted an extraordinary board meeting, which resulted essentially in the almost complete replacement of the board and of the executive suite. Right now, there is a very shareholder-friendly management, which have very good ideas of how to create value from the company and what paths to take in the future. That's why we're very hopeful. The idea, and which we expect, given the circumstances, that at some point, somewhere between the next, say, 12 to 18 months, there will be some kind of value-generating move into this company. Either, as we said, maybe a NASDAQ valuation, maybe through an IPO, maybe a spin-off, maybe a strategic sale. But the idea is the company in itself has a very profitable core and is extremely undervalued. So one way or another, price will have to reflect that value. To conclude, why we think is a very good opportunity, you have a core business with very fast, very predictable revenue and profit growth, a very attractive operating market, resilient to the business cycles, very strong barriers to entry and competitive advantages, very strong financial position. The company has almost half of its market cap in cash, deep undervaluation, even 2-3 times cheaper than a company in the same line of business, a new enthusiastic, friendly management team, and a board which is pushing for change, and very likely some very clear catalyst on the way in the near future. So that's why it's a good opportunity, and Quintessential took a sizable stake in the beginning of October and increased it recently as well.
Cool. Gabriel Grego, thank you very much for that. I do have a couple of questions here. First of all, the pachinko industry apparently has a terrible reputation, ethical reputation in Japan. Yes. Do you have any particular feelings about the governance of this company and why?
I do. Well, this is the former governance of the company. You have to see that the people who are leading the company right now have nothing to do with the people before. The reason why the company was undervalued is because of the former management was being too conservative. And I don't want to comment on the ethics of the pachinko business or gambling in general. You know, some people may think that we live in a free world, and if people want to gamble their money away, it's their prerogative. I don't care about that. But the point is, it's not the people which are currently leading the company which chose that line of business. The people which are currently leading the company are actually moving the business away from pachinko.
Okay. Also, another question here. Could you share a bit more about who the main competitors are and the threat they pose?
The main competitors, well, some of them are public, some of them are private. They're competitors in the sense that they operate in the same industry, but they are very different lines of business, so very different segments which don't directly compete with this company. So you can mention, for example, Variant. It's another Israeli company. Another company in a similar segment, it's actually private, but it's probably going to be IPO'd soon. I forgot the name. It has a fancy name. Palantir.
Oh, sure.
But again, it doesn't directly compete. It's a different product. Into this product, I think I wouldn't say it's a monopoly. I think there is another company. I don't remember the name, and I don't think it's a public company, but it's pretty much a greenfield area.
Hmm. And are there barriers to entry here that can prevent other competitors from coming in?
Yeah, as one of the slides mentioned that, number one, the clients tend to be sticky. These are government clients. Typically, they go with very long contracts. They don't have much price sensitivity because, again, they're government clients. And finally, the technology is patented and/or it's secret.
Mm-hmm.
So it's difficult to replicate. And there is also a learning curve because keep in mind that every time Apple comes up with a new iteration of their phone or iPad, usually the security features of that phone or iPad are upgraded and changed as well. And the company has to find out a new key to essentially crack it. And there is a learning curve there. So even though you are a larger competitor and you want to get into the line of business, you don't have a learning curve. And if you see, like, think of the United States, they have the best companies in the world, they have the largest budgets in the world, but when there were issues and the FBI couldn't penetrate the phone, they went to these guys. That should tell you something as far as their competitive advantage.
All right, and lastly, in your opinion, is the catalyst an IPO? It sounds like the catalyst has already happened because you're already heavily invested, but how soon do you think this IPO might happen?
Well, no, the catalyst has not already happened. I mean,
okay,
you could envision two catalysts. When we first bought this company, we bought a stake. This was in the fall last year. The old management was still in place. And we started seeing that the shareholder base was changing, that Oasis, which is a fund which has a terrific track record, especially in shareholder activism in Asia, and even in Japan, which until recently was almost impossible to achieve, by the way. It was notoriously a very shareholder unfriendly jurisdiction, but with Shinzo Abe, and the country has been kind of renewing itself, and now it seems to be a better terrain for those kind of operations. So we thought that something might change with this company. In any case, the valuation was so low to make it interesting. Now, after the current set of investors, including us, we were a small investor there, but we voted. We managed to change the composition of the board. Very interestingly, the stock price went down instead of up. Not much, but it lost maybe 5 or 10%. And then right after that, COVID crisis was in full-fledged. And the stock price went down from 1,400 all the way down to the high 800s. So that catalyst didn't do anything, pretty much because it was masked away by COVID. The real catalyst will be when you do something about that old declining legacy business and trade this company in a place where it will be fully appreciated as a standalone. And then it will be fully in the cybersecurity category, not in the technology conglomerate category, which typically trades at a discount. So I think that the best days in terms of stock price appreciation are ahead.
Cool. All right. Very interesting. Gabriel Grego, thank you so much. Quintessential Capital. We don't have any other questions for you at this time.